On guys in Matthew 26, reading from verse 14 to 19, and we're now getting closer towards crucifixion of Jesus, the events leading up. You see a stark contrast between a year's wages of myrrh and the oil that Mary anointed Jesus before the burial, and her love for him as she just washed his feet and poured that oil on his head, compared to Judas, who's betraying Jesus for 30 pieces of silver, the cost of a damaged slave. Verse 14, then one of the 12, named Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests. What we learn from Luke is that at this stage, Satan had entered Jesus, and so Satan's very much part of the plan as well. Often when we see these evil things happening in the world, we must just remember Ephesians 6, that our fight is not against flesh and blood, but against the principalities, against the powers and the rulers of the dark. And we know that Satan is part of this. Verse 15, then he said, what are you willing to give me to betray him to you? And they weighed out 30 pieces of silver. And we learn what that is worth. Exodus 21:32, if an ox gores a slave, male or female, the owner shall give the master 30 pieces of shekels of silver, and the ox shall be stoned. So a damaged slave is worth 30 pieces of silver. So it's actually quite a mockery in that sense. Verse 12, and I said to them, if it is good in your sight, give me my wages, but if not, never mind. So they weighed out 30 shekels of silver as my wages. I'm now quoting Zechariah. That's exact prophecy from Zechariah 11, going on to verse 13. Then the Lord said to me, throw it in the potter, that magnificent price at which I was valued by them. So I took the 30 pieces of silver and threw them into the pot in the house. And that's what Judas did after he realized what he had done with that blood money. He threw it into the temple, and then the chief priests used that 30 pieces of silver to buy a plot of land for Jesus. And so we see these prophecies, we see the mockery, we see Satan's involvement. Going back to Matthew 26:16, from then on he began looking for a good opportunity to betray Jesus. It's with the influence of Satan as well, and that's Judas. Now on the first day of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, where do you want us to prepare you to eat the Passover? So if Judas had known where they were going to go, because he's already looking for opportunities now to hand Jesus over, he would have probably used that place they were going to, but he didn't know, because God wanted to keep these things from them, because he wanted to make his timing of handing himself over perfect. Verse 18, he said to them, go into the city to a certain man and say to him, the teacher says, my time is near. I am to keep the Passover at your house with my disciples. And what we learn from Mark is that the man that they were looking for in the city was carrying a jar of water, which was very unusual for a man to be doing. It's normally a woman's duty. And they were very specific. The room was laid out perfectly. It was all there, but they didn't know that it happened exactly how Jesus said it would happen. They found all these things in place. Verse 19, and the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover. But as I was saying, they didn't know where, and Judas now being with them, and that's why the betrayal happened after that. And so if we look at all these events, we see God's hand over everything. Jesus knew everything. We see the wickedness of Satan trying to destroy Jesus, and then God then ultimately using it for good. And there's lots we can glean from this passage, but we see Matthew, just as a summary, Matthew's emphasizing the fulfillments of the prophecy of Zechariah. We see Mark emphasizing God's sovereignty, Jesus knowing all things and the precision of how the events happened. We see Luke emphasizing the spiritual involvement of Satan in the events. And we see John revealing Judas's heart as not just now, but it's been part of the process from the beginning, where he's actually had his hand in the money bag, and he's been stealing money from the word go, and this is part of his character, and he's been known to be like this. And so we need to just be wise. People will sneak into the church, take advantage of the situation, steal from the poor, but they're actually part of Satan's work, and so we need to be wise to look out for that. Amen.